Hey, 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 happy Tuesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, incredibly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. This is live stream 1112. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. Just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I will usually pontificate about a topic related to our hobby, which I shall be tonight. I'll be talking about how important it is to support small gaming publishers. And I'll kind of give you some reasons why. But of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live show, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber for at least 10 minutes and this high to ride this ride in order to take part in chat. So if you check all three of those boxes and you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, fire away. I will do my very best to respond. Let's see, who is the first out the gate tonight? It is Testy Trekkie, followed by Semper Buffo, Wallona's Cave, Mike, Kevin King, friend of the show, the Madman, is with us, as is Pete's Dracolich and Keithulu. And I'll take a guess, the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows, doing her best. Plan 9 from outer space. Why, of course I'm Bella Lugosi. What do you mean? But she's also wielding that glittery banhammer. So there we've got that. Sean O'Donnell is also jumping on into chat. So it looks like chat is off and running already. Very nice. Very nice. So let's jump on into the news because got some pretty big news pieces. So let's start off with one of them because now available in print, I believe, and in PDF, I certainly know, is Cyberpunk Red, Tales of the Red, Hope Reborn. And I've got the scoop from our Talsorian Games. Our Talsorian Games brings you the first full campaign book for Cyberpunk Red. When the megacorps blast your eyeballs with an unending bombardment of neon advertisements and the media outlets force feed their version of reality into your bleeding ears, it can be easy to forget the truth about the world, the city, and your life. That's when you need to retreat to a space made for and run by edge runners, people who know what day-to-day life is like on the street. For decades, the Forlorn Hope's been such a place. A bar where those Night City denizens who refuse to play by the corporate rulebook go to unwind, connect, and reaffirm their humanity. But in the time of the Red, the Forlorn Hope's in trouble. Will this classic Night City institution die a whimpering death or survive and thrive, helping the next generation of cyberpunks navigate life on the edge? That's a question only you and your crew can answer. Tales of the Red, Hope Reborn is a mission book for Cyberpunk Red, the latest edition of the original tabletop role-playing game of the dark future. This is a full-length campaign of 6 jobs covering every style of play, from Friday night firefights to high society booze heists to the biggest bar brawl ever. Good luck, Chumba. You're gonna need it. The 194-page hardcover with PDF is going to carry an MSRP of, I do believe, $40. I mentioned I think it's available because our Talsorian Games had revealed that this would be available on the 15th, but I don't see it on the our Talsorian Games website yet. So I am guessing the MSRP is going to be $40 because you can grab the PDF alone right now over at DriveThruRPG for $20. Sweet. Always very happy to see new Cyberpunk Red role-playing game releases come out, because if you have any interest whatsoever in the cyberpunk genre, you need to have this game. There is absolutely no doubt about it, because it is just, now granted, I will point out, and I did mention this in my review of the core rule book, it is not laid out the most intuitively out of any role-playing game I have seen. Sort of kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge there, but there are more cool ideas packed into the hardcover or softcover, however, PDF, the Cyberpunk Red role-playing game core book than most systems anywhere else. It's that good. It really is. It's just, once again, sadly not laid out as intuitively as it could have been. Gleeman RX, Kathy Evans, Pete's. Oh, I already said, no, I didn't say hello to Pete's Draculich, I don't think. And Jose Fernandez are with us in chat. Pete's Draculich is asking, what dice mechanic does Cyberpunk Red use? It is its own system, as Kevin King is also pointing out. Uses 10-sided dice. So you're using 10-sided dice. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I reviewed the core rulebook for Cyberpunk Red. It's got to be 4 years, maybe? If I remember correctly, I think you're looking at having a target number that you're looking to meet or exceed on a 10-sided die. Don't know. But I know it's 10-sided dice. I know that for a fact. But if I remember correctly, it is a dice pool, and then you are looking to meet or exceed a target number. It's not just a set number, if I remember correctly. So it's not as if it's like Savage Worlds, where it's like, oh, the number is normally 4. It can change, but still. But very, very nice. Very, very cool. So there we go. Tessie Trekkie says D10 plus stat plus skill versus target number 15 to 30. Bingo. Thank you kindly. Daryl Eretz with us, also pointing out it's the interlock system. Stat plus skill plus D10. I knew it was D10s. I was like, what's the mechanic? Is it a dice pool, if I remember right? So yeah, so it's pretty easy. Tessie Trekkie says, you looking at me, Chumba? Pretty sweet. Another big news piece, at least in my opinion, because just in time for Halloween comes a new backer kit, which launched earlier today. It is for Trail of Cthulhu 2nd edition. It's from Pelgrane Press. Here's what I know. In the midst of prehistory, alien gods and monsters fell to Earth and warred over our planet, unleashing cosmic science and inconceivable powers until continents sank and seas boiled. Exhausted or defeated, they fell into an eons-long slumber, and the human race obliviously goes about its business over their tombs. But there are those who want to seek out the fragments of the lore they left behind. Those who want to learn the secrets of the stars and the true names of the dimensions to gain the dead god's powers. Those who want to wake them up. You are among the few brave souls who know the truth about the mad gods at the center of the universe, about the great old ones who will uncaringly obliterate the earth, about the ancient legends of undying evil that are all coming true. You must make sure nobody ever finds out, or the world will wake up screaming. You have to keep the doors to the outside from swinging open, no matter what the cost in life or sanity. You have to piece together clues from books bound in human skin, from eviscerated corpses covered in ichor or ichor. I always hear it pronounced two different ways. And from inscriptions carved on walls built before humanity evolved. You have to go wherever the answers are and do what needs to be done. Do you dare to follow the trail of Cthulhu? There is a very short crowdfunding video for Trail of Cthulhu. Did I say it's on Kickstarter? Because it's not. It's on BackerKit. I don't remember. Did I say Kickstarter? I apologize. It is not. It is BackerKit. But regardless, let's take a look at that short video.
Peel back the curtain of the unknown with Trail of Cthulhu, 2nd edition. Investigate uncanny enigmas in the 1930s and piece together evidence of strange eons, decipher alien hieroglyphics, face cosmic terrors, and unravel hidden mysteries best left in the shadows beyond infinity. Powered by the award-winning Gumshoe system, Trail of Cthulhu brings streamlined, story-driven horror to your tabletop. Create intrepid investigators, approach unknown spheres and powers, and apprehend the inevitable dread of the great old ones. Join the fight for your mind before it's too late. Trail of Cthulhu, 2nd edition. Available now on BackerKit.
You can get the full-color hardcover edition of Trail of Cthulhu 2nd edition, as well as PDFs of the core book, the Kingsbury Horror, Boundary of the Darkness, as well as all other digital rewards unlocked during the campaign for a pledge of approximately $80. Or if you want to just grab the core book in PDF, you can do so for a pledge of approximately $33 through November 7th. Expected delivery on the PDFs is next March. The physical books will follow in, I believe, July of 2025. Gotta say, I'm happy to see a new edition of Trail of Cthulhu. This is written by Kenneth Haidt as well as Gareth Ryder Hanrahan. So pretty cool combo there. If I remember correctly, I think the original Trail of Cthulhu was Robin D. Laws and Ken Haidt. Off the top of my head, that was a long time ago when I reviewed that. I only had an opportunity to review the PDF, but and it's a written review from pretty far back, probably about 8 years, maybe 7, 8 years ago. Pretty sweet, pretty sweet. So, from my understanding, this new edition is going to have 2 ways to play. So you're going to have kind of a traditional Lovecraftian approach. And then you're also going to have kind of a pulp action, two-fisted action sort of approach, all in the same book. So they are going to be in the same book. Now, there are a multitude of various different pledge levels. So the Kingsbury Horror is an adventure. Boundary of the Darkness is, I also believe, an adventure, but it's set in the 18th century. I think it's 18th century France. actually. So there's a lot that's going on in this backer kit crowdfunding project. So you may want to take a peek. And I do believe it funded already. So it launched today. I do believe it has funded. Pretty sweet. And I should also point out, stay tuned, because I will have my reviews of The Fall of Delta Green, as well as the Borellis connection before the end of the month. Yes. Hey, in time for Halloween. What can I tell you? Hey, if you are interested in Cthulhu role-playing, well, there's a humble bundle that has arrived. It's from Chaosium Inc. and, of course, Humble Bundle. And it is the Call of Cthulhu Encore Bundle. And I've got the deets on the deal. Invite Eldritch Terror to your table. Bring a taste of terror to your game nights with this bundle from Chaosium, complete with everything you need to run the dreaded, yet beloved, Call of Cthulhu role-playing game system. On top of the Call of Cthulhu starter set, you'll get the Investigator Handbook, replete with expanded rules for creating player characters, as well as the Keeper Rulebook, brimming with all the information you need to keep things orderly as your table descends into madness. You'll also get tons of adventures, including some aimed at first-time game masters, as well as entire campaigns. Pay what you want for over 25 books and game aids for this seminal role-playing game, and also help support the World Wildlife Fund with your purchase. So you can score massive savings. You can get started for as little as $5, which is going to get you the award-winning starter set, which I have reviewed. It is fantastic. I believe there's also 3 other PDFs that you get for the $5, or you can go all in for the entire collection of 26 PDFs, which also includes the 2 core books. So for investigators and for keepers, for a minimum donation of $25. So you are looking at less than $1 a PDF. This is through November 2nd. And once again, your donation is going to benefit the World Wildlife Fund. And if I remember correctly, there is a new addition to this humble bundle. And it is the new edition, Nameless Horrors. That's why I'm sharing the image there. I was like, wait a second. What was it? Maddie C says, I swear I just purchased a Call of Cthulhu Humble Bundle. I wonder how this compares to what they purchased. I believe it should be the same, except for now it includes the new Doorways to Darkness. So you have got that. Or no, I'm sorry. It's not Doors to Darkness, which is the new edition. It is the Nameless Horrors, which is the new edition. So if you already have this, if you already got this bundle, I think that's the only thing that's changed. But if you have ever kind of kicked the tires on maybe looking into running Call of Cthulhu, or maybe you're curious, what's the big deal about this role-playing game? Why would Jeff run this role-playing game for over 4 decades? Now is your opportunity to check it out at just a fraction of the cost you would pay for all of these PDFs. Like I said, you can get it for less than $1 per PDF. That's madness. Madness, I say. Matthew Elias has joined us, as has Maddie C. DSX Machina is also with us in chat. So Matthew says that Humble Bundle is one of the all-time best deals in role-playing games. It also has a PDF coloring book. Is there any product less useful than a PDF of a coloring book? Yeah, I know. I get it. I get it. Kevin King says they need a Call of Cthulhu one shot to run in a couple of weeks for new players. Any suggestions? Let's see. I'll give you one. I'm trying to remember the title of it, but I'm not going to come up with it. There is an adventure, and it's a nice intro to get players involved, and it's not necessarily going to introduce them specifically to the mythos. But there is an adventure where the neighbor across the street, they're very odd. And the player characters are kind of investigating the neighbor across the street. And it does lead to, I would say, a conundrum for the players, which is pretty interesting, pretty cool. I like the adventure. It's short enough to be, a one shot. Rock and roll it out in, 3 hours, 4 hours. So I would say that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. Daryl Errett says, watching a content creator go through his list of products on DriveThru, 80% selling in single and double digits, but all his Call of Cthulhu was selling in triple digits. Nice. Kevin King says, Corbett House, otherwise known as the Haunted House in earlier editions, which I think a great many Call of Cthulhu players cut their teeth on that adventure. Strangely enough, this edition that came out the most recently, 7th edition, did not have the Haunted House as one of the adventures that was included. I was really surprised back in the day. Lenny Blade is with us in chat. Moving right along, available in print and PDF, is the Dragon Slayer Old School Renaissance role-playing game from Greg Gillespie. I've got the skinny. Harken back to the golden age of role-playing games. Journey into a realm of myth and magic, where ancient legends and terrifying monsters come to life, and adventure awaits. Inspired by the timeless role-playing tradition of the 1980s, this rule set seamlessly integrates the simplicity of Basic Expert with the chrome of First Edition. The book includes everything you need: races, classes, spells, monsters, treasure, all combined in a single volume. Welcome to Dragon Slayer. And I am going to share a quick video that's going to provide you a look at some of the artwork inside the book. The 299-page hardcover of Dragon Slayer with PDF is available over at DriveThruRPG for $65, or you can grab just the PDF alone for $30. And yes, I know many people out there are like, Jeff, come on, another OSR role-playing game? How many of these do we need? And yes, Vaughn Moore has popped in a chat and said, Greg Gillespie's personal views are well documented to be hateful and unacceptable. Look into it and decide if you'd still like to support him. I was going to mention that, yes, he is a problematic creator, but I am also not necessarily here to police the hobby. And I've mentioned that previously, that as long as somebody hasn't actually gone out and murdered somebody or done something, that's truly disgusting, I will share news about their stuff. So I was going to point out Greg Gillespie is problematic. So keep that in mind. But once again, I can't share games from creators of one side of the political aisle and then just tell the other side to go, hey, fuck off. I'm not going to do that. But then again, it's completely up to you to look into these things as well. So just because somebody voices unpopular opinions or opinions that you and I would disagree with doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to share a news piece from them. But I will tell you, you normally won't see me doing like interviews with those sorts of folks. Coco B says, looks cool, and I like advanced basic expert, but do I need another version of this, as Jeff states? Right, exactly. I mean, artwork looks cool. And I have heard good things about this. So that was one of the reasons I was sharing this news piece. Maddie C points out, hey, this is a hard pass because of the views of its creator. And I completely understand that. Absolutely understand that. Pete Strakulich asks, is Burrow Maze the greatest mega dungeon out there? GameCat asks, who are the RPG police? Makes you think. Lewin RX says, since Jeff reviewed God's Teeth, I presume everything is game. See, now, flip side of the coin, that's another creator that some people, some gamers out there have issues with. Was that going to prevent me from reviewing their release for Delta Green? No, it was not. But if you saw my review, I did have problems with the content of the adventure. So there is that. All right, so let's move on to another news piece that I don't think is going to be divisive. A new adventure for the Dungeon Crawl Classics Dying Earth setting has arrived from Goodman Games. Here's the latest on Passage to the Manse of Iridit. Is that how it's pronounced? I think it's Iridit. Wonderment. It's not pronounced as it looks. A second level adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Goodman Games is proud to announce Dungeon Crawl Classics DE number 10, the latest adventure in their DCC Dying Earth product line. In this adventure, the party must survive a perilous journey across the wilds of the Dying Earth to the enigmatic home of one of the world's last magicians. Along the way, they'll have to overcome dangers, both magical and mundane, not to mention the inter-party grudges. This adventure was inspired by the Dungeon Crawl Classics Dying Earth team's visit to the home of Jack Vance, wherein they enjoy the opportunity to view the famed writer's personal possessions and speak with his son, John Vance, about his father and his fantastical work. Do want to mention a copy of the Dying Earth box set is suggested to play this adventure. Yeah, I would certainly say that's the case. This 26-page softcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $10. Is that right? Usually it's like 99 cents. Maybe it's $10.99. So I could have, well, I know usually the Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures in print with PDF are $11.99. Erudite. Thank you, Tesco Love. I was going to say, it's a word I see very rarely. Very, very rarely. Keldon's with us, says, new adventure for Dungeon Crawl Classics, Offended. Oh, everybody's throwing out the pronunciation. Thank you kindly. All right, if you want to just grab the PDF alone, see, I can pronounce PDF. That's pretty easy. You can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $7.99. Sweet. Very nice. Very nice. Always good to see new Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures come out for either the core game, obviously, or the Lankmar. Pretty nice. And also for Dying Earth. And yes, this sign behind me is about the fall. This is ticking me off because it was crooked. So then I cut the little piece of fabric off here and figured, oh, yeah, it'll be easy. All I got to do is tape it back on. Guess again. It's like the fabric tore apart. So I'm like, okay. So I took some speaker wire that was down here. I was like, okay. And I've got some heavy duty tape. It's holding it for maybe an hour at a pop. Tessie Trekkie asked, but Jeff, how do you pronounce GIF, the image format? That is how I pronounce it. I pronounce it GIF, not GIF. It's just me. Just me. Tesco Love says, I don't think John Goodman would let something offensive put out. It's not John Goodman over at Goodman Games. Sarah D says, hot glue gun or Gorilla Glue? Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. It just happened today. I got tired of it just hanging crookedly. I'm like, yeah, Max Traver is with us, says they just ordered the Dying Earth box set, like just now. Yes, Keith Ulu points out it's Joseph Goodman. John Goodman's the actor. All righty then. So we rocked on through the news. And yes, like I said, I understand. I shared a news piece. Some people, like, no, there's no way. I can't, I wouldn't pay a nickel for anything that guy creates. And I get it. I completely understand. Once again, I'm not here to police the tabletop gaming news. So, DB asks, when you need to do something in a hurry, do you do it in a Giphy? No, I do it in a Jiffy, which is spelt with a J. So that's why I pronounce Jiffy, not Giphy. And that's why I pronounce GIF, because it's spelled with a G. So just like the what is it? The old English spelling of Jeffrey with the G. Kevin King says they love the Dungeon Crawl Classics version of Dying Earth. Yeah, it's a good box set. It really is. And they have that newest adventure. Wish it was a little longer. So Tessie Trekkie says you didn't share Discworld. It came late. The news of it came out late. So I will pop a news piece up about it tomorrow because once again, there is no shows for the rest of the week. This is the only episode of The Dispatch for the week. And then I will be back a week from tonight. And then there'll be a couple of shows. And then I'll be off a week from Thursday for my birthday. So, yeah, because the funny thing is I had all my news ready, had everything done. And then all of a sudden I get the email about Discworld. I'm like, just like I want to say the Alien Second Edition Kickstarter is now delayed until 2025. And there are 2 new products for Dragonbane, which are going to kickstart. And that was announced. Well, I knew about it, but people are going out about the G and the J. I was going to say, Tesco Love said, this is Tesco's wife, by the way, so please don't hold this against him. Anyway, I did not share a news piece about that because it's not really much to, they shared covers of the books and that's about it. So, plus it's a Kickstarter and the Kickstarter is down the line. I think, if I remember, I think it's going to be November or end of the month, something like that. So, no, I did not share news of that. I don't tend to share news of Kickstarters prior to their launch, unless it's maybe the day before. Let's say it was going to launch on a Friday. I would put a news piece out there on a Thursday episode of The Dispatch. But for the most part, I kind of shy away from sharing early news of Kickstarters because there's nothing you can do about it. That's the main reason. Sure, you can go and be like, yeah, okay, notify me on launch. I guarantee you the vast majority of people don't necessarily do that. They may have done that with Discworld because that's a big IP. And that's a very unique IP for a role-playing game. But DB says a couple of Vaesen adventures are going to kickstart too, aren't they? I do believe so. I do believe that is also the case. All right. Anyway, so that was the news for tonight. Of course, I mentioned DriveThruRPG a few times. So if you are going to swing on over to DriveThruRPG, Dungeon Masters Guild, Storytellers Vault, Wargame Vault, by all means, please stop by thegaminggang.com. First, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. And of course, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Lovely. And there are some folks out there who do make not small donations, such as the Madman and Kevin King and Agile Monk Joshua Edwards. There are quite a few of you out there who pop on by and make not small donations. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. So let's see. A bunch of people popping on into chat. We got a lot going, rocking and rolling. So let's see. Death Angel Shadow is with us once again. TV says the GNUs. Hi, I'm Gary GNU with the GNUs. Max Trevor says they're awaiting the chance to get on the new Siege books for Amazing Adventures. Missed whatever crowdfunding they did. Supposed to be November is my understanding. So Agile Monk says 5% of the sale, yes. Not on everything though. So there are some times where it's nothing. And Walona's Cave says if you're a publisher, it goes up to 8%. Pete Draculich says Smurfs RPG, awesome. Didn't parents cancel the cartoon because Gargamel, being a wild warlock trying to catch Smurf demons, was too much for Saturday morning? So awesome. Cthulhu says, no GNUs is good GNUs with Gary GNU. All right, so we're going to talk about why it's important to support small game publishers. When we come back from a brief intermission.
Mustang, he's old most for real. Just saddle him up with spurs on your heel. No winding, no batteries.
What horse do?
Marvel the Mustang, do we love you?
Ride him in a roundup. Run him in a race. The winner by a nose.
Marvel the Mustang, do we love you?
Get Marvel the Mustang by March.
Boys, bring your ghoul friend. Gals, line up your boy fiend. Everyone bring plenty of company, because you'll shiver, you'll shudder, you'll cringe in terror when you see our screaming Mimi show. It's horrific. So heart-stopping, we're almost afraid to let you see it. However, we have seatbelts for cowards. If a vampire asks for blood, just say, you gay.
If you don't drink Wilkins coffee, you're not all there.
Oh, that's a lot of...
In fact, without Wilkins coffee, you're nowhere.
It's one of the nicer tree-lined blocks in New York, and only 20 minutes from the center of town. Oh, and just around the corner, there's a supermarket and a cleaner's. That's Father Harron in 5A. He's blind.
Blind? Well, then what does he look at?
There is danger everywhere. There is evil. Evil everywhere. Turn around, Allison. Look behind you. There is horror. There is darkness.
I think Allison may die.
But watching, waiting, warding off evil, there is hope. The Sentinel.
Before Halloran, there was Father David Spinetti. Before him, Mary Thorin becomes Sister Mary Angelica.
Father Matthew Halloran dies the same day that Allison Parker disappears and becomes Sister Teresa.
I call thee! A horror and confusion expedite our glory! Is the Sentinel the only thing that stands between the mortal world and the torment of hell? Between happiness and horror?
She went to a party with 8 dead murderers.
Eli Wallach.
Doesn't everybody?
Have a hat and noisemaker.
Sylvia Miles.
Nobody has lived in that building for 3 years.
Ava Gardner, Martin Balsam, Jose Ferrer, Arthur Kennedy.
There is danger.
Swear to God, I'll kill you!
Chris Sarandon.
I'll kill you!
Burgess Meredith.
Welcome home.
And Christina Raines. The Sentinel. The most frightening motion picture experience of your life. And the most revealing. Turn around. Look behind you.
Be one with us.
There is evil everywhere. And the Sentinel is the only hope. The Sentinel.
I must admit, I have never seen The Sentinel. I had heard pretty negative things about the movie over the years. And the funny thing is, I watched that trailer because I've actually had people requesting trailers for horror movies. Sadly, the requests that have come in set off a copyright violation, or a flag, I should say, not a violation. The Sentinel did not. And it's funny, I kind of know the story of the movie. For some strange reason, there are many movies I've never seen that I actually know the plots of. But I swear, watching that trailer, you already know what's going to happen. It's like, okay, I get it. All right. I figured it out. Don't even have to go see it. But strangely enough, there are a lot of really well-known actors and actresses in that movie who must have been in dire need of a paycheck. And what is with Chris Sarandon? Chris Sarandon always plays kind of a prick. I'm just saying, he doesn't usually play a good guy in movies. So, Gleeman RX says, Burgess Meredith, this must be a quality film. Yeah, he was in some good stuff. Anyway, that is our brief intermission for today. Keep in mind, tomorrow, I'll be heading on off to Madison, Wisconsin. Gonna go take part in Gamehole Con for a couple of days. I'm only going to go up there. It's really not going on tomorrow, but I'm going to go get my badge, check in. There's, I think, supposed to be a pizza party or something like that. And then I am also going to end up going Thursday and Friday, and then probably Friday evening, I'll head on back because it's about a 2-hour drive, a little more than 2 hours from where I'm at to get up to Madison. So that's why there are no other episodes of The Dispatch this week, because I will be going up to Gamehole Con, flying solo. So I am not going to lug around a camera and tripod. So I am going to bring my wireless microphones, which you can also record from. You don't have to actually plug it into the camera. You can record on them, with the receiver, without using the receiver, I should say. So I'm going to bring those with. And if any of the exhibitors want to do quick audio interviews, I'll look to do that. And then I'll look to just shoot maybe some B-roll stuff to overlay on it. Don't know. We'll find out. We will find out. Typical DMs, Mini Chest and Shanbot V42 are with us. Shanbot V42 has been with us for a bit in chat. So sorry I didn't say hello earlier. All right. So tonight, our topic is why it's important to support small game publishers. And I mean, outside the obvious, right? And I also believe that it's important for gaming outlets to also cover small publishers. And there is a method to my madness. And yes, I get it, especially like board game companies. With board game companies, small publishers, like, we're going back now to the early days of thegaminggang.com when we were just doing a podcast. We had the news websites. We did written reviews on that too, but there was no video. When we got on board with Victory Point Games, at that point in time, Victory Point Games released games like this. So this was how their games normally came. Sometimes they had a bigger footprint. So they were like 8.5 by 11, like the first edition of Dawn of the Zeds. That's how that came out. But still, Ziploc bag. You're looking at the components had kind of a desktop publishing look to it. This game actually that I'm holding, I think goes for about $100 on the secondary market because this was in print from Victory Point Games, had one print run. There was a falling out between the designer and the owner of Victory Point Games, and it was never produced again until I think, I'm trying to remember who it was. I believe did a second edition, but it looked like a standard war game. But this is how their games looked when they first came out. When I first started covering the hobby back in 2010, this was a Victory Point Games release. I think it was like 2011-ish, 2012 when this came out. But little decks of cards. The cards, don't have any sort of linen finish or anything like that to them. They're just plain old, like cardstock cards. But here's the thing. The gameplay of these, for the most part, were excellent. They were really good. This was an excellent game. And this was part of their States of Siege line. And this was kind of the height of these States of Siege, not States of Scene. Duh. This is probably the height of the design because States of Siege games were, when they first came out, they were pretty simple as far as the various different aspects. Because the States of Siege game, you have a central location, you have tracks, and your enemies are approaching, they're getting closer on these tracks. So as an example, there was a States of Siege game about the American Civil War, and you were Jefferson Davis, and of course, everybody's closing in on Richmond. And a lot of times, the States of Siege games sort of had a built-in finale where you lost. So it was like, okay, so how long could you hold out? But that was not necessarily the case with Malta Besieged. And then there is the Scorpion of the Sea, or I should say, that Scorpion of the Sea is the kind of like subtitle to the game. And then we started to see games from Victory Point Games come out, and they were in boxes. Still had that kind of desktop publishing look to them. And they all came in the same box, same sized box, same Victory Point Games box. And then they had a slip cover for the title, whatever the game was. So the second edition of Dawn of the Zeds, as an example, was in one of these boxes. So, well, they came a little further, got a little, closer to what was essentially the norm for board games. And then at the end, before Victory Point Games was sold to Tabletop Tycoon, which used to be Game Salute, they looked like any other board game company. I mean, they were being printed up in China, coming over on the slow boat, like the vast majority of board games out there. You couldn't tell. And the thing was, if people didn't support Victory Point Games when they were making games in Ziploc bags, a la Steve Jackson Games way back in the day, which had an even smaller footprint than this, we would never have gotten those more professionally produced games out there. And something else to keep in mind is a lot of times with small publishers will give new creatives a break. They give them their first shot in the industry. If you're not going to be self-publishing, then these smaller publishers are willing to take a risk on somebody who's, never sold a game design before. So that's important as well. So as another great example, and I'm going to refer to Victory Point Games once again, if you are into war games, then you probably know my buddy Herman Luttman, who he got his start designing games for Victory Point Games, including one of my all-time favorite games, good old Dawn of the Zeds. So he's got various different games. He's got Plum Island, the horror, isn't it? The Horror of Plum Island, which is kind of a little Dawn of the Zeds-ish for GMT Games. Funny enough, it's easier to win that game than it is Dawn of the Zeds. Limit RX says, yeah, I can't stand that those defunct Victory Point games are so expensive now. Why don't they make them available for print and play? Because they don't have the rights to them anymore. So what happened? From my understanding, without getting too far inside baseball and not revealing things that I probably shouldn't say, or at least make public. So when Victory Point Games was sold to Tabletop Tycoon, for many of the games because the big thing that Alan Emmerich, who was the publisher, he was the owner of Victory Point Games, always talked about was, these designers, they could take their game designs anywhere, right? So if Herman Luttman no longer wanted Victory Point Games to be publishing Dawn of the Zeds, he could take his design someplace else. So what happened is Victory Point Games was sold to Tabletop Tycoon, and there were a lot of Victory Point games that had been produced. In fact, I used to knock Victory Point Games a little bit because, they would come out with some good war game or even, some like science fiction game. And then they'd come out with a couple of real barkers as like, seriously? And it's kind of like, it's not like you guys have like a lot of resources to spread around. So there were some real clunkers that came out from Victory Point Games. But when Tabletop Tycoon bought them, they had the rights to all of these. So all that stuff. So, of course, obviously enough, Tabletop Tycoon does not publish all that many games. I think their big moneymaker for them is still Everdell and the Everdell expansions that have come out. But they did Dawn of the Zeds. They did Healthy Heart Hospital. They have a new edition of that I reviewed, which we enjoyed. I liked the first edition. I liked the second edition. It was a little more streamlined. They trimmed out some stuff. But it's not like they publish 30 Victory Point Games titles. I think all in all, maybe there's 5. So the gentleman from Tabletop Tycoon contacted a lot of the designers and just asked them, hey, do you want your design back? And many of them said yes. A lot of them said, oh, yeah. So it's not necessarily, this isn't a case where it's like, oh, Hasbro has all these Avalon Hill designs that people would love to see back in print. So why don't they just, license them out? It's not a case like that. It's the fact most of these designers do have the rights back to all of their games. It's just a lot of these designers for Victory Point Games were not professional game designers. They weren't. I mean, they kind of had, a hobby, just like my buddy Herman. Same thing. I mean, he didn't expect to become like a professional game designer. My friend John Welsh, same thing. He was sort of like, yeah, it's fun. I like doing this. And it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, look at this. I got a game in print. You could go back. If you go back on gaminggang.com to some of the interviews that I did at Consim World Expo in Tempe, I do an interview with John. I did an interview with Herman, and they're pretty interesting interviews. But even in the interviews, they're like, I never expected to actually get a game published or anything like that. And I know there are some of the various different Victory Point Games titles that went back to their designers that have like crowdfunded new editions. I know Cruel Necessity. That's a John Welsh game. It's kind of States of Siege, but very, I don't want to say the game is very complex, but it is one of the more complex States of Siege-ish games out there. But one of the reasons why you want to support small companies, small publishers, and we're talking role-playing games as well as board games. I'm not just talking about board games, is because, like I said, small publishers will give newcomers a shot more often than they would at a larger publisher. Now, that's more the case of board games, because there are some board game companies out there that do not accept any submissions. There are some role-playing game companies out there that also will not accept any submissions to them. So it's like, don't waste your time trying to send anything along to them. But something else as far as supporting small publishers is you'll get to actually watch the growth of their companies and take some pride in the fact that, hey, you know what? I've supported these guys. I remember I picked up XYZ game when it first came out. So like, as an example, look at like Necrotic Gnome. So Necrotic Gnome comes out with, I think it was the BX. Wasn't that it? Wasn't it BX Essentials? It wasn't old school Essentials. It was BX Essentials. And it was a series of 5 books. It came in a little box set, and it did fairly well. And then they decided to redo it as old school Essentials once again with the 5 small books. And now look at Necrotic Gnome. Necrotic Gnome is a pretty good-sized content creator out there. Now, they are published, their U.S. editions are published by Exalted Funeral, but just an example of just a one-person shot. Isn't it Gavin Norman, I think that's the person behind Necrotic Gnome and Old School Essentials and so forth. Speaking of, we were talking about OSR role-playing games earlier. And Stephen from Roll for Combat pops in and says, yeah, small publishers like him. Right. Upsidely is in chat with us. Might be a first-time visit live because that nickname's not ringing a bell. Says sometimes they'd see stuff that they know their group will play a couple of times at most, not commit to, but they'll buy it just because it's important to keep the blood pumping in those small companies. Plus, the reality is you can always crib from games. We talk about that all the time. A good game master. I'm not even talking about great game master. A good game master has various different role-playing games at their disposal that they can crib ideas from, steal ideas from. Lemon RX says, wish they would upload to Wargame Vault so that their games don't completely disappear. Like Tunnels and Trolls, I think the only reason people can still play them is because they're on one bookshelf. Supposedly, we're going to have a new edition of Tunnels and Trolls. We'll find out. Wallona's Cave says, if you have an idea for a game, start a YouTube channel, slowly build your product, keep looking for something that the market is not focusing on and take advantage of that opportunity. I would say, on one hand, I do agree, and on the other hand, I don't. Because if you're kind of like publicly playtesting a game through like a YouTube channel, you got to be really concerned about somebody swooping on in, stealing your idea, and getting it to market before you do. So, because that has happened. Vorpal Bite asks, how big are a publisher makes Thirsty Sword Lesbians? Is that... I'm trying to remember who makes that. Is that Magpie? I think it might be Magpie. I'm not sure what that question actually represents. What, how bigger a publisher makes, or is it how big a publisher makes it? They're small. I mean, if we're talking Magpie Games, yeah, that's a small publisher. That's a niche publisher, even though it is run by Vincent Baker, isn't it? Could have swore it is. Oh, it's Evil Hat. I would consider Evil Hat to be a small publisher. So I think, honestly, I think Evil Hat was probably a little bit bigger about 5 years ago. I think they've actually shrunk a little bit because I don't think Fate is as much in the popular like role-playing game consciousness as it once was. It's just me. Yeah, just think, I mean, it's very possible that Evil Hat is really big. I don't know. I mean, the reality is, if you think about it, any role-playing game company out there is relatively small. I mean, you know, like Paizo Inc., even Wizards of the Coast, it's not like they've got hundreds of employees. They do have various different freelancers working for them. There are a lot of freelancers, but as far as, you know, actual full-time employees drawing a salary or even hourly, not too many. There are not actually all that many. Give you another great example of supporting small publishers, and this company has been around for a long time. And most people, most gamers out there, especially if they're war gamers, would know of them as a wargaming company because that's mainly what they produce over the years. Now I think more people associate Columbia Games with Harn. I would think they do. And as an example, this is second edition Harn World. So just pretty standard stuff, right? Soft cover. There's a little bit of color in here, though. Not a bunch, just a little bit. In fact, I think there's 4 color pages in total. Maybe there might be 2. Well, there's a third. Yeah, there are. There are 4 color pages in total for the Harn World second edition. And then the 40th anniversary edition, hardcover, glossy paper, all color throughout. Now, of course, this kickstarted, but small publishers aren't always successful with their crowdfunding projects. I mean, we see crowdfunding projects fail all the time for big and small publishers. So there was a Kickstarter that I keep getting email about that it's just not my bag of tricks, right? I'm not saying that, oh, well, I just don't see my audience caring. I mean, that's reality. There are things that I run across and I don't share a news piece because it's not for my audience. And I'll have more people asking, geez, Jeff, why in the hell are you sharing news about that? Than who would actually be like, oh yeah, I'm going to support this. So, but it's from a fairly good sized publisher. It's got about 6 days left to go. It's like a 40-day Kickstarter, and it doesn't look like it's going to get to the finish line. Although the reality is we do see Kickstarters where there's money kicked in at the end to get them over the hump to get funded. So, yeah, there's some shenanigans at the end of some Kickstarters to make sure that they hit the finish line. Walona's Cave asks, what size publisher is Cubicle 7? Small. They are small. Agile Monk says Columbia Games is Harn. They still release their war games. You can still buy their war games. And from time to time, they will have a new edition of their war games come out. I'm watching. I can see that sign behind me. Did I just put it up there crooked? Maybe it's crooked because I put it up there crooked again. I don't know. Agile Monk says, yes, they do block war games. I believe they like to refer to them as fog of war, war games, which I am a fan of. In fact, that was my introduction to Columbia Games. I think it was Julius Caesar. As far as it was the first Columbia Games release I reviewed. It was either Shenandoah or Julius Caesar. I have not had an opportunity to review a lot of Columbia Games releases. And of course, as I'd mentioned prior, I will have a review of this finally this month. So it's, even though it's not truly old school, I think it falls into the old school October fairly well. So another reason why you should be supporting small publishers is to give designers out there, artists out there, a chance in the hobby, because for the most part, you normally do not see the bigger publishers out there just be like, oh yeah, sure. Submit your adventure to us. We'll take a look at it. And one of the reasons is because they don't have the resources to sit there and read through submissions. So Agile Monk says they've got all of the Columbia block games. Pretty nice. First Columbia block game I played was Sam Grant, and that was at a Gen Con in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dirty Dwarf is with us. I believe it's a first-time visit for Dirty Dwarf in chat. Welcome aboard. Says, hail the Troll Lords. Yes, I've got more Troll Lords games reviews on the horizon. They are going to be at Gamehole Con. So I might have an interview with, I don't know if it's Steven who's going to be there, if it's going to be somebody else. I don't know. So the reality is I haven't reached out much as far as exhibitors at Gamehole Con because I knew I didn't have a cameraman. And I knew I was going to be flying solo. And I feel kind of weird trying to set up interviews where it's like, yeah, it's just going to be audio. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And, you know, Elliot feels bad because he would actually like to go, especially, I didn't mention this to him, but I found out that every night there's actually like a reception or something like that. And it's free beer. So it's like, oh, okay. And it's also the same beer that they had at GaryCon when we went. Spotted Cow. It's like if I remember right, it's an IPA, and I was kind of like, So, last reason why you want to support small publishers is because that's how they become established publishers. That's how they become bigger publishers. Great example, Modifius Entertainment. Now, I would consider Modifius Entertainment to be a good-sized role-playing game publisher. And I know they're always trying to get more into miniatures and board games and stuff, but I think most people also still think of them as a role-playing game publisher. And when they first started out, it was essentially, to my knowledge, it was Chris Birch and his wife. And they did an adventure for Call of Cthulhu. It was the first release for Achtung Cthulhu. And that was pretty much it. That was basically it. That's what got them started. And then they came out with another adventure. And then I remember at Gen Con, it was prior to Gen Con. In fact, I interviewed Chris about this that year. They had announced that they were getting the license for Star Trek. And people are like, what? They are getting Star Trek? How? And it was funny because they really didn't have that much out there. I think they had released like Airfix Battles, which was a war game where you used little Airfix soldiers and stuff. It was a pretty basic game, but they had some of the Achtung Cthulhu stuff out, but they were still doing Achtung Cthulhu as a Call of Cthulhu setting. So it was still licensed to, or through, I should say, Chaosium Inc. That's why people are like, really? Star Trek? I think they had also revealed that they were going to do a board game for Thunderbirds. So once again, people are like, So Max Travers rocking and rolling. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Peaceful Porcupine is popping on in. So Peaceful Porcupine says they're debating on picking up D6 second edition when it's released, which is a smaller pub. Isn't that, oh, I'm trying to remember. Trying to remember the creator for it. Are you talking about Easy D6? So I'm kind of curious. Alan Rowe is popping on in. Some discussion of Section D. If we're talking about Section D, the Savage World setting, I have the core rule book, which showed up pretty recently, about a week and a half ago. So I will be reviewing that very shortly. So stay tuned for that. That'll probably be next month, though, to be very honest with you. But yes, I got that from the same distributor who sent me the 5th edition of Chivalry and Sorcery. I've got Slay Industries, the most recent core rulebook for that. I got the Terminator role-playing game core book. So got some coverage of that on the horizon too. Anyway, just taking a peek here. Okay, so D6. So we're talking about West End Games D6. Thank you. It's being done by, I believe that'd be Gallant Knight Games. Isn't Gallant Knight the ones who do Tiny D6 games? I think it is. I think it's, isn't that Alan Barr? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Shono Dallas is going to miss you the rest of the week, Jeff. Well, you know, if you're in Madison, Wisconsin, you could see me up close and in person. Yee. Yep, there you go, Agile Monk. Yes, it is Gallant Knight Games. I reviewed, I think it was Tiny Dungeon, back when I would do like PDF reviews. So DB's rocking out. Very nice to see you. I'm going to wrap this up in just a few moments. But yes, one of the other reasons why you back small publishers is so they survive. Because a lot of the air in the room is just sucked out by Dungeons and Dragons. And I know there's discussion of, well, you know, it lifts up all boats. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because it's not as if people have an endless budget or a limitless budget for their gaming purchases. That's just not the case. So that's one of the reasons why I always share the humble bundles of holding that I run across, if it's not crap, because we do see some crap, especially with bundle of holding. But like the Call of Cthulhu bundle through Humble Bundle right now, where you can get 26 PDFs, literally years of role playing for a minimum donation of $25. Now, okay, Chaosium Inc. Would you consider them a small publisher as far as role-playing games? No. But once again, if you go to conventions, I think it really strikes you the size of the companies, right? So Chaosium Inc., people are like, oh, Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, Rivers of London, Pendragon, the new Pendragon. Wow, they're pretty big. Not that big, right? Maybe there's 10 people who work for Chaosium full time. That would be a guess. I don't know for certain. But like Troll Lord Games, just mentioned Troll Lord Games. I think there are 4 people on the payroll for Troll Lord Games. And 2 of them are the Chenault brothers. I think somebody had mentioned that Davis Chenault is supposed to be at Gamehole Con. I don't know Davis as well as I know Steven, and I'll be very honest, I don't know Steven all that well either. It's actually their marketing person, Chuck, who I know the best, which I highly doubt he's going to be there. But I will do my best to try to get an interview with, now I know they've got the young woman, I think her name is Grace, who's doing a lot of their PR stuff, their marketing stuff now too. I don't know if she'll be there. Maybe she'll want to get on the mic. I almost said on camera. Agile Monk says, Davis is the primary rules writer. Yes, and I believe Steven is kind of the primary setting / adventure writer. So once again, I'm just pointing out how small these companies really are. And I did a news piece. I'm not going to mention what it was, but I actually now have a copy of the game that I did a news piece for. And its creator reached out to me and they were like, oh, they were like falling over themselves to thank me for sharing the news piece, because they said that right after I had done the news piece, they had sold like 25 copies of the game within like the next 2 days. And sales had been, just at a certain level. And then all of a sudden that was like a big jump. And, you got to remember, nobody gets rich in this hobby unless you are like the CEO of Wizards of the Coast. And I'm sure they're not getting rich. They're making a good buck, but they're not getting rich. So when you support a company and like they sell 25 copies based on me sharing the news about it, I'm sure that wasn't the only thing. But still, they're the one who reached out to me to tell me about it. That can be a big deal, not only financially, but also just to sit there and be like, wow, you know what? People do really want to check out my game or my adventure or what have it, right? It really goes a long way. It's helping creators feel vindicated, appreciated. So I think that's important too, because I guarantee you there are a lot of people out there who would probably just be phenomenal content creators that, the word just doesn't get out about them, about their releases and stuff. Their stuff gets buried under, the bigger publishers releasing stuff too. So Ellen Rose says Chuck from Trollord Games is going to be at Gamehole Con. So nice. So I will definitely say hello to Chuck. So yeah, we'll have an interview with Trollord Games. Might just be with Chuck. I don't know. And Peaceful Porcupine says they still maintain that the people on Discord servers they met in Asia report Call of Cthulhu is oversaturated in their areas, and in Japan, apparently female coded. I know Call of Cthulhu is very popular in Japan. So was Tunnels and Trolls. And mainly because of the 6-sided dice. Not Call of Cthulhu, but Tunnels and Trolls. Because way back in the 70s, it was not easy. This is what I've been told. I do not know. This is just what I've been informed of over the years. It was not easy to get polyhedral dice in Japan, but of course it was super easy just with regular 6-sided dice. Daryl Errett says grass-fed free-range game designers are the best. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think one of the reasons, and I've mentioned this before, and I think this will be the last thing that I tackle, and then I'm going to wrap it up because I know that sign behind me is going to fall down. And if it falls down, it's going to break, crack, or whatever. I think one of the reasons why, at least in my opinion, a lot of the more recent Dungeons and Dragons books that have come out, be them adventures, settings, the player's handbook, I think they have suffered because there are so many freelancers who work on them. And there are so few people who full-time work on a book. So there's, like 4 books in the pipeline in various stages. And you'll have somebody, I guarantee someone like Chris Perkins is overseeing all 4 of them. They're not just focused on, boom, that one book that's coming out next. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen just a decrease in the quality overall of the content from Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons and Dragons. Just my gut reaction. And if you're not supporting small publishers, 1 or 2 person houses, then if they want to continue to be involved in the hobby, then they have to start maybe freelancing. So, and like I said, I mean, I don't have anything against freelancers. It's just that I think that there's just too much discombobulated content out there for like the D&D releases. And then it's sort of like, okay, well, now we had so-and-so work on this, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. They did this, then this and that. And now we got to tie it all together. Kind of comes across like a mess. Sort of a mess. Peaceful Porcupine says the Chinese Discord person has complained that it's called Cthulhu. As far as you can see, it's hard to get anyone to play anything else. Well, have them move to the US. Then they'll complain it's all Dungeons and Dragons. As far as the eye can see, nobody wants to play anything else. So this will be my last thing, and then I'll wrap up. This is just off the cuff. Getting that out of the way. It's just irritating me because I can see it, right? Because, I've got my teleprompter, I've got chat, and then I actually have the view of the camera delayed by, a couple seconds or whatever, if even that. I don't really have much time for people who complain that, oh, nobody wants to play XYZ game. Nobody wants to play XYZ game. So maybe we'll do this next week as a topic, because I thought I tackled this once before. But well, maybe we'll change the take on it, the angle we come at it from. On one hand, people talk about there aren't enough game masters out there. Can't find a dungeon master, can't find a keeper, can't find game master, what have you, right? So hear that from a lot of people. We don't get to play because we can't find someone to run it. Then on the other hand, you have people complaining that, well, it's all Dungeons and Dragons. Nobody wants to play anything but Dungeons and Dragons. It's all Dungeons and Dragons. Or, as Peaceful Porcupine's pointing out, in other countries, it's other games, like Call of Cthulhu. Tunnels and Trolls probably is still pretty popular in Japan as far as fantasy role-playing games. Those two things together lead me to believe that there aren't enough people who want to run something other than what's big or what's popular. And that's one of the things that we do around here is talk about games that are going to fly under your radar. You're going to get news about stuff that, oh, hey, I didn't know that game was out. What is that? Oh, there's a new adventure for XYZ. Oh, there's a Kickstarter for ABC. But the people who are like, oh, well, there aren't enough game masters, some of those people have to step up and game master. That's the solution to that problem. Is somebody's got to bite the bullet. You know, it's not easy being the forever GM. Trust me on that. But if you want to play, and if you've got people who want to play, somebody's got to bite the bullet and, jump behind that game master screen if you use one. And then, on the other hand, if you want to play something other than what's popular in your area, you have to be the person to run it. Because I sort of get the feeling that some of the whinging that goes on about this stuff is like, oh, I want to play. I don't necessarily want to play that. I'd like to play something different. Damn, I can't do that. Expecting someone else, which we see a lot of in this world, where it's like, oh, me actually take on the responsibility of doing this? Oh, no way. I'll leave that for somebody else to do. So, yeah, it's kind of how I feel about that. Got the people complaining there aren't any game masters out there. Okay, well, then become a game master. And maybe, hopefully, someone else in your group will be like, oh, yeah, I could do that. So you get more than one game master in your group. And then if you don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons, you don't want to play Call of Cthulhu, then you need to run that game. So there you go. TJ says, I started running Savage Worlds because of that. There weren't any people willing to run it in the group. Of course, right. Of course. By the way, welcome to chat, TJ. JH Spacer's Choice Spoon says, at least for me, I'm not interested in even attempting to run my very first game of 5e, but I cannot get friends to budge from 5e. Only planning to run Mothership once because of anxiety disorder. I would recommend, and welcome to JH. I believe this is the first time visit in chat for them. I would say do a one-shot. Do a one-shot, and I understand that people get anxious as game masters out there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of artificial pressure that's been placed on game masters because of other outside influences, actual play videos and things like that. Fuck that. Don't worry about that. The vast majority of the time, your players will have a good time. Even, and we've talked about, yes, there are a lot of bad game masters out there. And it's not easy to be a good to great game master. But as I said during that video, if your table is having a good time, then you're a good game master. So don't worry about it. Do your best. Keep in your mind that the goal is to have fun. The goal is not to make sure you get all the rules right. Nobody gives a shit about that. Don't worry about that. And if you got people at your table who are going to try to rule lawyer you, nip that right in the bud, right? Because you'll never get rid of the rules lawyering if you don't nip it right in the bud. But yeah, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. And the other thing too is, remember when we talk about everybody at the table having a good time, the game master needs to be having a good time. Because if everyone else is having a good time and the game master is like, oh my God, this is such a drag, then it's not worth it. Then it's simply not worth it. And yes, game masters out there, and I'm one of them, sometimes we're not feeling it. And we're like, okay, well, everybody got together. I got to do my best. And then sometimes you start off a session and you're like, man, this is sucking big time. And then something clicks and off it goes. And you're like, yeah. So, you just kind of stick with it. Off the Shelf Board Game Reviews is with us. As part of the challenge is the lack of games that can help new game masters. So, check out Beyond the Wall. A lot of people say really good things about Beyond the Wall. I have not had an opportunity to take a look at it. Gleeman RX says, let's be honest, 5e is a strong game, but in their opinion, there are much, much more interesting games. D&D is just the first house in the glorious city of games. Yeah, and, there are loads of people out there who got their introduction to role-playing games from Dungeons & Dragons, some edition of it. Now, granted, I haven't regularly played any Dungeons & Dragons since about 1981. Gleeman RX asks, Jeff, have you considered putting out an official Game Master advice tutorial videos? I started doing one. It was like, so you want to be a GM? Didn't really get much traction. I think I did 3 videos. So I wrote weird as this sounds, I did write a book. And it was kind of tongue in cheek. The title, if I remember correctly, the title was The Gaming Gang's Guide to Great Game Mastering. And I even recorded audio of it. Maybe I'll float that out there. But we're talking, gosh, it's probably 10 years. And it's funny because I was looking for the PDF because I wrote it, it's like 85, 90 pages. And I lost the file somewhere along the way. I do have the audio file. I do not have, sadly, I do not have the actual file with, the little book. Anyway. Pete Dragowitz says, surprise your table with some scratch-off level 0 character sheets. Run Dungeon Crawl Classics. It'll quickly shake things up. I will say funnel adventures for Dungeon Crawl Classics, for some people, is an acquired taste. There are some people who play 5e who despise funnel adventures. Part of it is because they don't get to craft all the backstory and everything else. So I understand that. All right. So that is going to be it for this time out. Do want to mention, if you have not caught some of the recent videos, I did share my review of the Savage Worlds Adventure Edition role-playing game player's book. So this is all player facing. So essentially what it is, it's the core rule book with all of the game master facing material trimmed out. There are some sections that I would kind of consider game master facing, but still, I like this quite a bit. So, and it's $20. So I know one of the reasons why this was made was because I guess back in the day when Savage Worlds first came out, it was pretty inexpensive. So people would go and they would purchase extra copies to give to players around the table. And then now the core rulebook's like $40. A little pricey if you got 5, 6 players around your table. So Daryl Errett asks, is Cyber Cthulhu a thing? I mean, there are some role-playing games out there, like Cthulhu Tech is one. I don't know. The Man says they bought the player's guides for all their players. Mighty generous. Mighty generous. Also for war gamers out there, I did my unboxing video for Red Dust Rebellion, which is part of the Coin series from GMT Games. So check that out if you've not had an opportunity. And of course, the October Spooktacular continues, even though archive.org is down for the foreseeable future. It will return, but sadly, that's where the files were all stored for past editions of the Halloween special old-time radio shows. But at least the past few nights, I have just been uploading the files to my server. So you can check out the old-time radio shows as I release them every night at midnight. So you can check that out too. All right, so if you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you, because not only do you keep me company, you're keeping each other company. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. It doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the over 2,000 videos here on the channel. And of course, if you like the video, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. Also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming review of the Vorpal Almanac for Old School Essentials from Exalted Funeral. So Old School October rocks on with my review. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. I will not be back until a week from tonight because I will be up in Madison, Wisconsin, at least for a few days for Gamehole Con. So enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And I hope you'll join me again a week from tonight. And as always, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.